Good morning. I'd like to welcome you here to our STS-79 post-landing conference with NASA Administrator Dan Golden. He is on a very tight schedule, but he has agreed to come over and make a few statements and answer a few questions.
Let me start off by saying this was the most beautiful landing I've ever seen. Of course, the shuttle came in from the other direction, so you could see it bank and you could really see it very, very well. I had the privilege of spending just a few minutes with Shannon Lucid after it landed, and I'm happy to say she's in great shape. Her spirits are terrific. It's always inspirational being with Shannon. She's such a positive person, and that she's looking forward to getting together with her husband and family. She'll be doing that very, very shortly. I also would like to say that I didn't tell the press the proper thing. I told them that she was going to come out in a horizontal position, but she asked to come out standing up. So she came out under her own power, and I went into the crew transport vehicle, and there she was sitting in a chair. Just very, very comfortable. So she's in great shape. She has to have a number of physical tests. We'll leave that to the docs and Shannon. But her spiritual and emotional state is really terrific. I'll just take a few questions now if you'd like.
Okay. We'll start with Seth Warrenstein, Orlando Sentinel.
What did Shannon tell you specifically when you spoke to her? I mean, what did you tell her, and what did she tell you?
Well, I'll just talk about a few things. I think the details are probably not too important, and you'll probably want to talk to Shannon when she's ready to talk to you. But I brought a box of M&Ms from the president. I've never seen a box of M&Ms with the presidential seal on top of it. And she had indicated she had a craving for M&Ms. So, I mean, it was about this big. It was about the size of 2 or 3 shoe boxes, so I think she'll be in M&Ms for a while. And we just had a very, I would call it a social chat. I didn't want to burden her with any technical issues. But at some point in time when I'm in Houston, I want to sit down and talk to her about the whole issue of the human interface. She probably has the best knowledge to date of this issue. We're trying to understand the relationship of how much telepresence and communications we need. When we go up on the space shuttle, we're confined to 1 or 2 weeks. And we really drive the astronauts, and we do a lot of intensive training. But now that she's been up there for 6 months, we wanted to understand how the scientists in space will interact with the scientists on the ground. So I told Bill Reedy to tell Shannon when I come to Houston I wanted to talk to her about that subject.
Jay Barbary.
Jay Barbary with NBC. Mr. Golden, you said she came out on her own power. Did she walk out with the rest of the astronauts unassisted into the People's Transport? And is there any likelihood that we may get a statement out of her later today if she's in such good shape?
First, I'll tell you what I know. That she came out of the shuttle into the crew transport on her own power, but I think a couple of people just were holding on to her just to make sure she wouldn't fall, but she wanted to do it under her own power. And we'll just have to wait to see when she's ready to talk. I'll leave that to the docs and Shannon. I just don't know, but she looked in pretty good shape to me.
Bill Harwood.
Bill Harwood, CBS News. Just, of course, Shannon's mission obviously is looking ahead to International Space Station. There's some critical meetings going on in Houston this week, the incremental design review. And I'm wondering, given that all the folks in the program are saying the Russians are months behind on the service module and other elements of that station, at what point do you, and perhaps the Vice President with the next Gore-Chernomyrdin meeting, at what point do you have to start turning the heat up on your Russian colleagues to make sure they can meet this schedule that's coming up? Because nobody seems to think they're going to be able to meet it.
Well, let me say this. Everyone has to do what they say they're going to do. This is an international program. When you have a partnership, you can't have one partner say, I'm going to do something and not perform. We have had some very, very vigorous discussions with the Russians, and at Gore-Chernomyrdin 7, we talked to the Russians about the issue being their funding their portion of the program, and I think this is what you were referring to. The Prime Minister assured us that the funding would be taking place, and what we did was we signed a set of milestones so that we could have measurements as we go along and see if everyone's doing what they say we're going to do. So the Americans signed up to milestones, the Russians signed up to milestones. They met their first milestones. There are some very important milestones coming up in November, and it is crucial. And I would say that that's going to be a very important set of measurements when we get to that point.
Quick follow-up.
Yeah.
Just a real quick follow-up. That's the mechanical assembly complete, I guess, in November. And I'm wondering if they don't make that milestone, what course of action do you have at that point if they don't make it? I mean, what happens then?
Well, this is a very large, complicated program, and we have had one serious problems after another, but we've held a launch date. My position is there is no relief on that launch date making it safe, and we're going to have to figure out what those workarounds are. And we'll just have to take the problems as they come, but we have made it very clear to the Russians. They got to do what they said they're going to do, as they expect us to do what we're going to do. And I still think we have some things that could be played out. But first, they got to pay for their part of the program.
Craig Cavalt.
Craig Cavalt with Aviation Week. To follow on the last question, what is the most key thing that will come out of the Houston meeting this week in your mind?
Just a sense of what the issues are. What have we accomplished? And where are the problems? I got to say that the communications on this space station program are vastly improved over last year, and I really want to compliment George Abbey for the openness that he's displayed, involving the leadership from industry, involving the leadership from the different centers, and this has been a great step forward. But the key issue is, we always like to take our pulse. You know, I exercise all the time, and I check my pulse to see whether it's too high or too low. So we're taking the pulse of the program, and we'll see if we have any issues, and then we'll deal with them.
I think we've got time for one more question. Sue Butler.
Sue Butler for the AP. A follow-up on the earlier Frito-Lay question. Frito-Lay has offered her truckload of Frito-Lays, with some of it going to charity. As a government employee, would you permit any of your astronauts to accept such freebies?
I don't know the context of the question, but let me answer it this way. Generally, I don't think that we should turn the space program into a set of infomercials. I think there's a genuine desire of a whole variety of American companies to participate and to genuinely have people enjoy their products. But I'd like to not see the space program turn into a big advertising campaign with one company battling with another company.
Irene Brown, we do have time for one more.
Irene Brown with UPI. The Russian participation in the space station really helped cement that program in Congress. If there is some revision necessary, how hard a sell do you think that would be for you?
You know, there are going to be lots of bumps in the road. There are going to be lots of problems. When you start working with someone who is an adversary for 50 years, there's a lot of learning experience that you have to undergo. I don't even want to think about that at this point. We're going to work through these issues. We're going to work through these problems. Just take a look at this mission. Shannon was up there speaking Russian. The things we've learned about the Russians, culturally, things are different. When they say something, we try and interpret it with an American interpretation. So no, we're going to work with the Russians. We're going to hold them to do what they say they're going to do. And I'm confident that we have a good chance of making it happen. We're not backing off. We're going to build the space station. And every time there's a hiccup, we're not going to get hysterical and point fingers at people. We will hold people accountable. That's the best way to do it. And we'll trust people until we have reason to distrust them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's all the time we have.